Today in fantasy news, Dark Tower, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, and much, much more. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of the big names coming through today, because, you know, news.
Oh, yeah.
We've gotten our first details about the Dark Tower adaptation being helmed over at Amazon. Apparently, it will be 13 one-hour episodes. Many big names are involved with the production of the show, including those who have worked on The Walking Dead and Star Trek Discovery, according to the article I'm ripping from. But this has me excited for The Dark Tower. Amazon seems to be pushing several big-name fantasy franchises to be adapted as soon as possible, and I'm excited to see the first one come down the pipeline. They spent a lot of money buying these IPs. Will they be able to do all of them justice? Probably not, but I'm hopeful for at least a couple of them being real gems and surviving the initial wave we are going to see within the fantasy genre. Speaking of that wave, the Lord of the Rings TV show is also in the works over at Amazon, and apparently Sir Ian McKellen does not think he is too old to play the role and would like to reprise it.
Yes.
I'm absolutely in agreement with that. There is no other Gandalf besides Ian McKellen to me, and if they tried to do anyone else, it just wouldn't feel right. It's like Hugh Jackman for Wolverine. It's just that's them, you know? They own that role, or Christopher Reeves for Superman. You can't truly recast that iconic level status. And speaking of casting iconic roles, it looks like they're already talking about casting a new Wolverine for the MCU. Personally, that is the wrong route to go in my mind. Let mutants who have not previously been at the forefront take up the mantle. I'd love to see someone like Gambit be one of the real stars who introduces the MCU to the mutant extension of Marvel. But no, Wolverine's got the big bucks attached to his name, so they'll try to cast someone else. I hope they at least do a good job, but I can hardly imagine them replacing Hugh Jackman, especially with the incredibly emotional send-off he got in Logan.
Oh, no.
And speaking of not living up to previous entries in a franchise, Fantastic Beasts is promising the third installment in the series will be all the better and greater than the previous two, which is pretty much them acknowledging they were not up to par with the Harry Potter franchise in general. And I honestly went from not really liking the first one to thinking the second one was not worth watching. I have pretty much zero interest left in the Fantastic Beasts franchise. I get there are still some fans, and I do not fault you for being a fan. It's a wonderful world, but it's personally fallen away from what made Harry Potter magical to me, and seeing them try to promise something bigger and better instead of maybe getting down to the roots that originally made this world work for an entire generation doesn't exactly inspire hope. Harry Potter does not thrive off big spectacle, it thrives off the heart that got the series started in the first place. Yes, the magic system is beautiful and wonderful and a nice spectacle, but we all care about the story of the boy who lived, and Hogwarts, and how it's a home. The magic is really just the icing on the cake, so I hope they figure that out soon. But in sort of related to fantasy news, Mile 81 by Stephen King is also set to be adapted into, guess the genre, a thriller. It's Stephen King, probably thriller horror. I've actually never read Mile 81, but I'll get to it, or Daniel that whole joke. We'll get to reading it as soon as possible. In other big franchise news, the Witcher lawsuit seems to be settled. The company behind the Witcher video game, CG Project Rect, I think is how you're supposed to say it, it's spelled weird, was being sued by the author of the original series. He said they only had license to build one game. They built 3, but he did not sue until the third one came out. Not after the second? Why? Probably because that was not actually in the original agreement, and he's lying, saw them make a ton of money, realized he shouldn't have turned down a percentage profit, regretted only taking the small paycheck up front, and wanted more of the money. But it looks like CD Projekt Red has caved, and they will be paying the author a significant amount more money. I guess maybe he wasn't lying. I still think he was, because much of what he said, including explicitly stating he wants more of the money, it just smells fishy and out of place. I don't think they really could have made the third or second game in breach of contract without him then suing them in the first place back then. Just my own speculation, though. It doesn't add up to this journalistic sniffer. But in a positive note, The Expanse is now available worldwide on Amazon Prime. To my Asian, European, Antarctic, African, all viewers, South American, welcome to watching The Expanse on Amazon. I actually haven't picked it up. Should I? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, and arguably the most controversial and biggest story of this episode of Fantasy News, the Lord of the Rings TV show filming location has been announced, and it seems it will mostly be in Scotland. Previously, the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies were were filmed in New Zealand. This has kind of become a real source of pride for the country and a major tourist attraction, allowing them to have a massive amount of income from Tolkien heads like myself going to visit the Shire and etc, etc. But there was also a lot of drama around actors unions and things like that from The Lord of the Rings, and many groups feeling like they did not get their fair cut. This drama got even worse with The Hobbit, so the fact that this next adaptation has chosen not to film in a place which is deeply connected with the history of Lord of the Rings now, with the most successful fantasy adaptation in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, arguably of all time, and the mildly okay and financially successful Hobbit follow-up, it's a bit of a blow to the country and to maybe arguably, depending how you view it, the legacy of Lord of the Rings, seeing them jump over to another filming location. The wonderful YouTuber Lindsay Ellis has a great series devoted to just this drama. If you want to dive in deeper to it, just look up Lord of the Rings, Lindsay Ellis. It'll be there. It's like her There and Back Again or something series. It's great, and it's honestly worth getting into. It's fascinating to see the curtain pulled back and the inner workings of the movie making process and who gets the most money and who gets screwed over, really just laid bare. And excuse the Wheel of Time news, but I'm giddy to hear that Rafe Judkins sat down with Brandon Sanderson himself.
Yeah.
And we have not been made privy to what exactly was discussed yet, but I'm hoping it was overall just things to improve the show, the future of the series, how it should be handled, because of all the minds in the world who have every right to make their opinions well known and should be held in positions of great high power on any opinion Wheel of Time. Brandon's probably in the top 2 voices to do that, second only to most likely Harriet. In homegrown local booktuber news, and actually a booktuber I like, unlike hack fraud Daniel Greene, Elliot Brooks' book Peace and Turmoil is available for pre-order in the link down below. If you want to support an up-and-coming author who's put a lot of time and effort in what looks to be a fantastic entry for the fantasy genre, go check it out. Link in the description down below. And you didn't think you'd get some fantasy history updates, but you are. Several long-lost manuscripts telling certain stories of Merlin have been unearthed. That's weird, but now we know more about Merlin. Apparently someone thought it was trash and used it for a book thing, and now it was rediscovered. Can you imagine screwing up so bad that you destroy like the last remaining manuscript to a story that people will be looking for? Dude, you screwed up big. You screwed up.
You done up now!
And also in Tolkien news, the new Tolkien trailer has dropped. If you want to see the trailer for the biopic about arguably the greatest fantasy author of all time, trailer linked below as well. And in I'm not sure how I feel about it news, a Star Trek kids show is apparently in the work. I'm not immediately wholly against this. The Star Trek franchise in my mind has still a lot of potential left. I don't like certain directions it's being taken in currently. A kid's show could be nice. Obviously not for me to watch, I get it, but I'm just hoping it still maintains the scientific mind backing that drove the original few series and has apparently been completely dropped for Star Trek Discovery. And also in Star Trek news, the details of the setting of the Picard Star Trek TV reboot have been announced and are being talked about. I keep fantasy news spoiler free, and some people could consider these spoilers, so I will link this story in the description down below as well. But that's all we have today on fantasy news. Let me know what news stories I missed in the Discord server in the fantasy news channel. I'm sure I really love all you guys who support me doing this. I would not be able to be this news aggregate without my aggregators out there, so much appreciation. This show is quick becoming one of my favorite things to do on the channel here. I mean, on Hack Fraud Daniel Greene's channel, so you know, I love it, and I appreciate y'all. Have a good one. Peace! Stoop, boop, stoop, ba-doop, boop, stoop, boop, stoop, ba-doop, boop, boop. And this was by my feet the whole time I was recording, trying to get my attention. Little nugget. Yeah, he really doesn't like it when I record. Much prefer I pay attention to him. Well, he's sleepy now. Oh. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the news. And I know you like it when I end with some Pips footage, so here's Pips. And here's your Pips footage.